Hey everyone, this is Gospel Grits. This is a podcast about faith that holds under pressure. It's about being loud with your faith, being bold with your faith, and saying yes to hard things. Today I want to talk to you about what it means to have faith through grief and tragedy. I've got a friend of mine here today. His name is Justin. And I was thinking about this today, Justin. Do you realize it's now been 13 years since we served together at Battle of the Sexes that first time?
Are you trying to date us, bro?
Yeah, we're getting a little old.
You're old.
For sure. See, friends, Gospel Grit isn't just about doing hard things. Sometimes it's about surviving the hardest things. I want to share some scriptures before I just allow Justin to share his story today. If you're experiencing grief today, you're experiencing trials or hard things, I hope that this encourages you. Psalm 34:18 says this: "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted." John 16:33 says this: "In this world you will have trouble, but Jesus has overcome." Romans 8:38 and 39 says that nothing can separate us from the love of God. And so today we're going to hear what faith looks like when life breaks your heart, when something unexpected happens, when something challenging happens that you just aren't ready for. And so, Justin, thank you so much for coming in to share your story. You experienced tremendous loss, not once, but twice in the same week. Can you take us back and share with what you had to endure?
Yeah. So, I don't talk about it much because it's hard to process. But growing up, I had a younger brother. We're 5 years apart, and we never really had that great of a relationship. We always kind of bickered a bit, kind of like brothers do. But throughout life, he always struggled with his mental health. And it got to a point where he was really, really struggling with some things, and he decided to take his own life. While we were trying to process that grief, my dad and I are very close, and 5 days later, my dad died in a freak ATV accident. Thankfully, my nephew was in a seatbelt, or we potentially could have lost him as well. But it was a very hard time because, we hadn't even had the opportunity to process, the passing of my brother, and then losing what we felt like was a cornerstone of our family was one of the hardest, just times of my life. Mm-hmm. Losing people in general isn't easy, but I'm getting older and, becoming stronger when those things happen.
Mm-hmm. Man, I can't even begin to imagine going through that once, but going through that twice. And I knew your brother and your dad very well. Your dad was one of the most faithful people that I've ever been around. He was there every week serving. Your brother was a handful, but he was a joy. And we spent so many times working together in facilities and stacking chairs. And so I know it was even difficult for me to process, but I can't even begin to imagine what it was like for you and your family. And so what were those first moments like emotionally and spiritually for you? To
be honest, I think a lot of it was anger. Mm-hmm. It wasn't something that I was at the time that I felt like I was spiritually grounded to battle through. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, I wouldn't have been able to do it without, guys like you, my network around me, the men that I've been exposed to through groups at this church. Mm-hmm. But I was angry. I found myself running away from God rather than towards him.
Right. So how long did you find yourself running or lost? What did that season look like? And
that's a great question. Mm-hmm. I think everybody processes it differently. Mm-hmm. But I can remember a moment I believe it was a prayer and fasting. Mm-hmm. So My brother and my dad passed away around his birthday, so that would have been August timeframe. So prayer and fasting we usually do at the first of the year in January. And I remember going to Pastor Jeff at that prayer and fasting and just saying, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I'm angry. I'm mad. It's one of those things where it would have been easy for me to just shut it off and just stay away. But I don't have a clue what Pastor Jeff said to me in that moment.
Right.
I just remember an immediate burden being lifted when he was praying for me and walking me through that moment. So I guess if we were to equate it, it's probably 4 or 5 months. I did have to take a step back and ask myself, should I be doing things like drinking alcohol?
Right.
In those moments, because it wasn't good for me.
Right.
I wasn't in a good place. And, I had to kind of step up and become the patriarch of our family. And it wasn't easy because my mom was looking to me. My sister was looking to me. I still had to support my kids. To make it even more chaotic, my dad was extremely excited to have another grandchild in the family. So my wife was pregnant at the time. So he missed the birth of my daughter in that passing. So, just processing all of that together, it just was not easy. And it felt like it was easier to stay away versus run towards.
Right. So here you are, broken, rightfully so, angry, and yet I don't know if you've even had time to process this, but as you were speaking, what just caught my mind was I was just fascinated by the idea that you're angry at God, yet you still found yourself going to church, staying in community, and you were at prayer and fasting, angry at God. What made you stay connected even though you were mad?
I kind of grew up in church. I've always been a part of the church, the youth ministry. I was in the worship team when I was in youth ministry. You and I served together with students. Always had a passion to just help the youth get through things. And I really don't have a great answer for that. I just knew that I needed to continue to go to church. I had a lot of friends checking in on me routinely, whether it be, Pastor Zach or Pastor Jeremy, just guys that were willing to help me get through it. And I'm sure there was some knowing or unknowingly thing that was just kind of keeping me to go that route. I also had to kind of, I guess in the back of my mind, I think about trying to remain strong for my kids. My kids didn't really understand it, but I think my oldest saw some things and understood some things. But there was just something that just made me feel like I had to or needed to continue to go to church. And I'm very thankful that I did.
Yeah.
Because I don't really know where I would be without the community I had around me.
And so this was the next question I was going to ask, but you really touched up on a lot of it. Do you think it was vital in your anger and the way that you're feeling, the way you're processing grief, for you to allow community to stay connected with you? Because obviously, you said, man, you mentioned community. You mentioned, man, this was part of my spiritual rhythms my whole life. This is what my dad would want me to do. So obviously, you stayed connected to God. And I was originally going to ask you, how did you stay connected to God? But really, what I felt led to ask you now is, how important do you think it was that you allowed community to encourage you to stay connected to God? Because I feel like most people, as a pastor, I see them isolate and push away from all that when they're experiencing grief.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. I would definitely encourage anybody that's struggling through different things to find community. One of the big things I was encouraging my brother with when he was going through his challenges is like, you're not alone in this. You have value, you have worth, and you don't have to do this alone, because he was really struggling with a lot of different things. Sadly, I feel like the enemy won and was able to take over. But, I would encourage you to find community. nobody's perfect. I promise you, in any group or any community that you find, they're struggling with something. It may not be what your specific struggle is, but we weren't designed to do this alone. I'm a very social person. I'm in sales. I'm very outgoing. I probably wouldn't do something like this if I wasn't an outgoing person and able to be in front of people. But find that community. You don't have to do this alone. It's something that's not what we were designed to be. God wouldn't have created Eve if He wanted us to be alone.
100%. I would even compare the grief I've experienced in my own life to what you've experienced. But in my own grief, Danielle and I lost 3 children in the pursuit of having our 2 daughters. And Justin, I found myself very much angry at the Lord as well, and saying, things to myself like, God, I've given my life to you. I'm doing this for you. And so it can completely resonate with the idea of being upset. And then I had, a lot of the same community that you have had that helped me along the way. But what I've found is that healing process is a journey. It's not something that happens overnight. And there's still times, my oldest daughter is now 8 years old, and there's still times that I talk about it from the platform and choke up, and Danielle the same way. For those that are struggling to heal, would you care to be vulnerable enough to share what's been the hardest part of the healing process for you?
Yeah, I think it's sort of a funny laugh about it thing now. But what I used to do with my dad, so they bought a house that was right across from us, which has been the greatest thing ever, because my kids can run over to grandma's house and see grandma anytime they want. But him moving across the street, actually, he thought that he would be more of a burden to me. And looking back on it, I was definitely more of a burden to him to some degree, because I would call him and I say, "Hey, Dad, I need your help with something for 15 minutes." And usually it would never take 15 minutes.
It was an hour. Yeah.
It was an hour-long process. We were trying to fix something, and we would always be like, that didn't take 15 minutes.
Right.
And I was like, it never does. And I think that's been one of the things that I really look back on when I'm trying to figure something out, and I can't pick up the phone. I can't call Dad. But in the midst of that, there's been people around me, one guy in particular. He's a really good friend of mine's dad. I've known him for a long time. And he's kind of become that for me. He's stepped in and been honorary papa, honorary dad. And he looks at me as like I'm one of his sons. And I can call him up anytime and ask him how to do the electrical that I don't know how to do. So it's when you're processing through those things, I can promise you there's someone somewhere that's willing to help you get through it. So that's been one of the harder parts, and just when I see my boys fighting and arguing, I miss those times, even though it was chaotic with my brother. But I also try to encourage them that, one day I will be gone. I will be no longer here on earth and in heaven. And that you need to cherish these moments that you have together and support and love each other. So, just looking at my boys and them and their relationship, wanting to encourage them, it has been really important to me.
Awesome. While you were talking there, this popped in my head, and I feel like it might be able to encourage somebody. This comes from our private conversations that we've had in the last several years, where you've shared with me, now that Corey's gone specifically, that you have a lot of regrets about y'all's relationship and what that looked like. Can you share today and maybe encourage somebody, like, how you can get past that regret, because there's nothing you can do to change any of that now. How have you worked through that process of like, man, I wish my relationship, or I wish I could have done things differently with my brother, now that you reflect years later?
Yeah, I think it's important for don't look back, look forward. You can't, a lot of time, you can't change the past. You can't change what you said. But what you can do is change what you do moving forward. So when I, again, kind of going back to my boys, when I'm encouraging them to be loving towards each other, I'm looking at that as an opportunity to build a foundation that they're going to have a good relationship, despite their age difference, despite their differences, whatever that may be. Just would encourage anybody to run forward towards God with a biblical foundation, and just be encouraged that knowing that we're gonna mess up.
Yeah, for sure.
We're gonna make mistakes, and you just have to be okay with knowing that that's going to happen. But I always tell my kids, especially with sports, that it's not what you did, it's what you do about it. So we can sit back and I can dwell on all of the things that happen and say, I'm not going to follow Jesus. I'm not going to do all these things, but I know that my life is better for it. I would challenge anybody for an entire week, pray every morning, read your Bible every morning, and then tell me you don't feel great at the end of the week. And I'm going through that season right now where I'm really encouraged by the small group that I have, the group of men that I have, and that we're all working through the New Testament together. And it's not perfect. I know we're not all perfect every day.
Sure.
But I know that it's an important foundation that helps me get through the day and focus on moving forward than backwards.
That's good, man. How many years has it been since they passed now?
So my daughter is about to be 5. She's the queen of the house for sure. Definitely the bossiest.
Yeah.
So we're coming up on about this August. It'll be a 5-year anniversary.
Gotcha. So coming up on 5 years. Obviously, you talked about moving forward. But if there's somebody that is watching today that is in the middle of it, what's one thing you would change about how you handle your grief?
I really think I would, we hear it all the time in church, whether it be sin, whether it be grief, whether it be a challenge, and whatever it may be, and run towards God. I know it may not sound like it makes sense. It's really that simple. Do your best to run towards God in those moments, and, make sure you have people around you. I can tell you, I've been a member of High Ridge probably, you lose track after you've been around for as long as I have, but I've seen a lot of really great pastors come and go. I was there when Pastor Tim had the cool haircuts, when Pastor Jeremy was coming away from the cool haircuts. But, I've been around for a long time, and now I've lost my train of thoughts, giving them a hard time.
Yeah.
What was the question?
What's the one thing that you would change about your journey? What's one thing that you would do differently?
Yeah. So I would just, again, I'd focus on the fact that, actually Pastor Tim told me this one time, and I think it was in the midst of all of this. He said something along the lines of, how are you going to get through your hardest times when you have a weak foundation? And, it really, I look at that a lot, and you look at how strong tree roots can be. So if your roots are at the surface and they're not strongly rooted in a foundation with Christ, it is very hard to get through those moments. And if I could go back in time, I really wish I would say, you know what, God, I don't understand this. It doesn't make any sense to me, but I know that you have a plan for my life.
Yeah.
I know that you are all knowing, and that there is something good that is going to come out of this. And, it doesn't make sense in those moments. Grief is hard. As a matter of fact, at the end of last year, we lost my father-in-law. He had a lifelong battle with, cancer. He was in and out of recovery with it, and just ultimately, older age, it was harder for him. But I feel like my foundation of the grief that I've had in the past, it made it easier in some ways to deal with that grief, but also knowing that, man, he loved Jesus.
Right.
He had a great foundation. He encouraged us. I would get Bible verses from him all the time. And like, I'm thinking about it now, and I'm getting kind of chills knowing that he's looking down right now in that, and just knowing that we're setting that foundation for the family that I have.
Yeah.
So it just, again, encourage everybody to run towards Jesus. Get people around you that are going to help you do that. I've got another pastor from this church. I love to take nuggets from all of our pastors. And I think Pastor Levi used to say this all the time of, show me your friends and I'll show me your future.
Yeah.
And my closest friends, the ones that know the most about me, are heavily involved in church. They're all in groups. They're all encouraging. They all love me. They're all genuine. Like all the things that you want your friends and your community to have. And I know that at the drop of a hat, I can make a phone call, and they may have to move around a schedule, but if I need something dire, they'll be there in a heartbeat. Yeah. And that's what we need. We can't do that without that community. And I used to say that High Ridge was too big, but that was before I got into community and groups. When we launched Parker County, I felt a little bit disconnected because I wasn't in a group. So again, just get that community around you. It's important. We can't do it alone.
That's good. We've talked a lot about, how this grief has affected you and how you've dealt with it. But obviously it didn't just hit you, it hit your mom and your family members and all those around you. And you mentioned having to be the patriarch now and stepping into that role. And to be honest with you, even at the celebration of life, I could tell that you were carrying this weight of trying to make everybody be okay, even though you weren't okay. And so how do you think how you process your grief influenced those around you?
Actually, a specific thing comes to mind where I've got a lot of friends that I just stayed in contact with for a long time. I've got, obviously my church community and the guys that I've built, helped try to build High Ridge with. And then I've got a group of guys that we've been friends since high school. And we're still all friends. We all laugh and joke about how we're going to be 100 years old sitting on the porch talking about the old times. And I had a really good friend text me one day, and it was kind of out of the blue. And he just said, man, I don't know what it was, but something about, your walk encouraged me to start taking my family to church. So I really don't know that I was always the light that I needed to be. But I guess at some point, at some way, I was that light for someone. And that's something that I try, I'm reflecting on now is, what are people seeing Justin as? Are they seeing that, hey, I don't want to be known as just a good guy. I want to be known as, hey, that guy loved Jesus, and that guy sought Jesus. And, it's one of those things where we don't know what the particular instance is that sends people that way, but something we're doing, which is why it's so important to make sure that we're seeking God and trying to reach people in different ways. So that was a big thing that I think that comes to mind, where a really good friend of mine just out of the blue texted me and said, hey man, you've been through a lot. And it really encouraged me to see that you still stayed committed to going to church.
Yeah. I mean, this podcast is gospel grit. It's moving forward in faith, even when life hits you, when things are hard. It's easy to be a Christian when things are going amazing in your life, but here in America, we're not used to having our faith tested. And so when something significant happens to us, like 3 significant losses in 5 years for you, some people's faith will crumble. But what's even encouraged me in your process and your journey is that you didn't allow your emotions to dictate doing the right thing. You were mad, you were angry, but you kept showing up. You kept letting people speak into your life. And I remember you telling me, this sucks. I hate this. But you kept showing up. You kept seeking community. You kept going to church. Even you didn't feel it, you knew what the right thing was to do. And so I believe that's how the Lord has expedited the speed at your recovery. Not that you're completely healed. Obviously, there'll never be full healing on that until you're in the presence of Jesus, right? It'll always be a battle here on earth. But I just wanted to tell you that I'm encouraged that you never gave up and that you've kept going. And to those that are watching right now, I want to encourage you to keep going and to not give up. And so do you think you just kept going out of habit, or do you think that like the Lord was just making it clear that I'm here with you? Talk to me about that for a second.
I would, if I'm being honest,
Yeah.
I would, we're habitual creatures.
Yes.
So I grew up in church.
Yeah.
You know, we're very active in sports.
Yeah.
With my boys, and my oldest plays competitive baseball. So we miss church on Sundays sometimes. And one of the big things I've told him is like, hey, we have an opportunity. Like this is important. We need to do this. Mm-hmm. And as he gets older, he's about to be getting involved in youth ministry. Mm-hmm. You know, like that's a priority. And I think creating that priority, while it seems habitual, is also somewhat spiritual. You know, you have to create those habits. But I would say that it was more habitual that helped keep me going, because I knew that I needed it, versus really being super spiritually grounded. And like God saying, you need to do this.
Right.
Now looking back, it's like, there's this overwhelming, like, you need to be founded, like deeply rooted and foundational in what I have for you.
Yeah.
Because you know, if I look at what's kind of transpiring right now in my life, I've got a lot of challenges with just the kids, the schedule, work, and it's taxing. And then, you know, I got to be a good husband and be nice to my wife and be loving to my wife and care for my wife. If you're married, don't forget that, because it's important.
Yeah.
But, you know, all of these things are going to constantly come, whatever season you're in life you are. The stronger your foundation is, which is what I'm trying to, you know, it's like watering a tree.
Right.
You know, you've got to continually water the tree or it's going to die.
Right.
And
That's
if
good.
you're not spiritually watering yourself,
Yeah.
you're going to die. And, you know, it's just something that I'm really trying to drive towards, is creating a stronger foundation, not just for myself, but for my family.
Yeah. That's good. Can you tell us maybe one time during this journey where you for sure felt God's presence during your grief, and share what that felt like and just how that comforted you?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably go back to that prayer and fasting moment, because I really did feel like there was a spiritual weight lifted off of my shoulders, or whatever it was. And that moment is really where I said, okay, I'm going to continue forward. And I mean, we still have scars, you know, when you cut yourself or nick yourself on a knife when you're cooking dinner or whatever
Wounds,
it may be, wounds, the scar's still there. You still see it. You still feel it.
Right.
And it never goes away. But do we want to pour salt on that and let it fester and bother you? Or do we want to move forward and let it heal? And I think they're reminders of what we've been through, but not letting it bother you so much that you can't move forward for it. So am I 100% healed from it? Absolutely not. You know, I already, you know, anytime I look back and I'm like, I really could use my dad right now and I don't have him, you know, it's hard. Or when I'm, you know, looking back and wanting to, you know, hey, hang out with my brother and razz him. I mean, I've got you to razz. I can razz you a little bit.
Which you do.
But, it's one of those things where it's just, you gotta try to move forward as best you can.
Yes. So how would you say these challenges and this experience that you had 5 years ago, how have they affected your faith today?
I think it's made me want to strive to seek God more in those moments. One of the big things I kind of mentioned work and some challenges around work where I was a little frustrated with a lot of different things, and I remember telling myself, okay, let's pray before this conversation happens. Let's pray before these moments happen. And there's just a weight that's kind of lifted. So I want to continue to be strong in those moments and seek God for guidance and clarity. I'm not always perfect in that. But I think it's one of those things where it's just, the more you practice it, like I'm not very good at praying out loud. I never find myself knowing what to say, but it's because I don't practice it enough. I'm always praying on my own or in my head or real short over dinner with the kids, but you have to strengthen that muscle. It's like working out. You're not going to be able to bench press 455 pounds at your max if you don't train to do so.
Right.
And same thing. You have to spiritually train your body to be able to get through those moments.
Awesome. I want to encourage you that are watching right now. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 8 and 9 says this: "We are afflicted, but not crushed." Faith doesn't mean we avoid suffering. It means we stay anchored to Christ. Gospel grit isn't trusting Jesus even when your heart. Gospel grit is trusting Jesus even when your heart is breaking. There's hope, and we see it all throughout Scripture. Revelation 21:4 says this: God will wipe away every tear. The gospel gives future hope, not just present strength. Friends, as we can see today, grief is very real, but it's not the end of the story. So I want to wrap this thing up with one final question. For someone that's listening right now who feels overwhelmed by loss or grief, what would you tell them about taking the next step forward with God?
Don't do it alone. Ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I think when we look at those times, it's easy to close off. That's the easiest solution. The easiest solution is just crawl up and into the fetal position, as we say.
Right.
But I would encourage you to not do that. If you're struggling with a mental health issue and you feel like, man, my life doesn't have worth, get help. Reach out to somebody. Just tell someone. You shouldn't be embarrassed by your circumstances. That's because good. There's people that are willing to do that. If you're a member at High Ridge Church, come find me. I'm at the Parker County campus almost every Sunday. I'm happy to help people through those things. If I don't know the answers, we'll find people that do. But definitely encourage everybody to not do it alone and ask for help. Pride is a terrible thing that I've struggled with at times because I'm like, I got this. I can do it on my own. You can't.
That's
promise.
a lie. Yeah.
And I think we as men, we tend to struggle with that a lot, but don't do it alone. You don't have to. There's people within High Ridge Church that are more than willing to be a part of your life and help you get through whatever you're struggling, whether it be addiction, your marriage, whatever the scenario is. Just ask for help.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and your process. I know it's going to help out so many people. And so, friends, pain is going to touch every life. Eventually, we're all going to experience it, and it looks so different with everybody that experiences it. But I want to remind us today that living a life of gospel grit, remembering to move forward, looks like this, that faith doesn't always mean that life is easy. It just means we get to keep walking with Jesus. Grief may change our lives, but it doesn't have to steal our faith.